Let's be honest, when you walk into a room, she notices everything. Not just your face, not just your style, but the energy you carry, the confidence you radiate, and yes, even the insecurity you try to hide. Younger women are not just looking for a man who can provide or who has a career. They are instinctively scanning for cues of emotional maturity, stability, and authenticity. And here's the truth, most men will never admit to themselves. What you think is charm can often be what repels her the most. Younger women have an almost invisible but incredibly accurate sense of when a man is desperate for approval, when he's trying too hard to impress, or when he's insecure behind the polished exterior. A compliment that feels sincere can suddenly feel manipulative if it's over-delivered. A small gesture of attention can feel overwhelming if it comes from a place of need rather than genuine connection. And yet, so many older men continue making the same mistakes, blind to how these tiny, unconscious behaviors erode attraction. Here's one of the first things younger women hate but rarely say aloud: explaining yourself. Whether it's your career achievements, your lifestyle choices, or even your emotional state, too much explanation signals insecurity. She doesn't need the backstory on how you made six figures or why your last relationship failed. She wants to see that you are whole, complete, and capable of holding your own without needing to justify every move. When a man over-explains, it subconsciously tells her, "I am not enough, and I need you to see me as impressive." The irony is, the more you try to convince her, the less convinced she becomes. Another trap is the obsession with age. Some men think reminding her of your experience or maturity automatically builds attraction. In reality, constantly pointing out the age gap can make her feel like you are trying to prove dominance or superiority. Younger women want a man who leads through presence, not lectures. They are attracted to confidence that is quiet, not loud. Wisdom that is subtle, not pushed. If your age is your main talking point, it becomes a weapon against intimacy rather than a bridge to it. And let's talk about attention. Too much, too fast, too often. Younger women are incredibly sensitive to intensity. When an older man floods them with messages, calls, or validation, it signals neediness. It's not just annoying, it's a trigger for distrust. She doesn't want to feel like she carries the emotional burden of your desire. Instead, she is drawn to a man whose focus is balanced, whose life is full, and whose attention is earned, not demanded. Finally, you must understand the silent, invisible signals. It's not about what you say, it's about what you don't say. The slight hesitation before a text reply, the subtle body language during a conversation, the energy you bring into her space, these are all noticed. Younger women read these cues instinctively, and they react unconsciously. A man oblivious to his own energy, who relies purely on charm or status, is already behind before the first words are spoken. If you want her attraction to deepen, you must first master awareness of yourself, your energy, your intentions, and your subtle behaviors. Everything else, the words, the dates, the gifts, will follow naturally. Ignore this, and no amount of charm or money will save you. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and most older men cross it without even realizing it. Younger women hate arrogance, disguised as wisdom, because it feels controlling, dismissive, and emotionally heavy. They aren't looking for someone to lecture them or correct them. They are looking for a man who can hold space for their thoughts, their feelings, and yes, even their mistakes, without judgment. When you act like the world should revolve around your knowledge or experience, you immediately become less attractive. Another thing that drives her away is over-possessiveness disguised as care. Many men think that constantly checking in, monitoring her activity, or protecting her is a sign of love. It's not. It signals fear of losing control, fear of being replaced, fear that she might see someone better. Younger women are drawn to men who can trust, who can give space, and who understand that attraction cannot be forced or monitored. Trying to cage her attention only makes her want to escape, even subconsciously. And then there's the subtle trap of excessive nostalgia. Older men often try to bond by sharing stories from their past, emphasizing how much they've seen or experienced. At first, it might seem charming, but if every conversation turns into a monologue about past adventures, exes, or achievements, it signals that you're stuck in the past and not fully present with her. Younger women crave presence. They want to feel like they're experiencing life with you, not listening to a rerun of your history. Here's another silent attraction killer: emotional inconsistency. She notices when your mood shifts without explanation, when you oscillate between hot and cold, when your attention and affection feel conditional. This unpredictability triggers instinctive caution. Younger women are wired to sense emotional stability. It's not just about comfort, it's about trust, safety, and long-term attraction. If your emotional state is a roller coaster, she subconsciously distances herself before she even realizes why. Let's talk about humor, because even this can be a minefield. Older men often rely on sarcasm, self-deprecation, or edgy jokes to appear witty. The problem is, if this humor masks insecurity or subtly undermines her, it kills attraction fast. Younger women are drawn to men whose humor uplifts, whose presence makes them feel lighter, safer, and more energized. If your jokes leave her questioning herself, you've crossed the line from playful to toxic in her mind. Finally, let's examine the invisible energy of neediness. It doesn't always show up as words. It can be in the way you hold eye contact too long, laugh too hard at everything she says, or try to fill silence with endless chatter. These behaviors scream, "I need you to like me," and she senses it immediately. Attraction is never built from need. It is built from independence, self-mastery, and emotional presence. If you fail to understand this, you might be pushing her away while thinking you're pulling her closer. Mastering these subtleties is not about manipulation, it's about self-awareness. It's about seeing yourself clearly and adjusting behaviors that unknowingly repel rather than attract. Once you understand how your energy impacts her perception, every interaction, every glance, every word becomes far more powerful than anything you could buy or display. Most older men completely underestimate the power of subtle disrespect. And I don't mean overt rudeness or insults. I mean the tiny, almost invisible ways you can make her feel less than or like she's not fully seen. Interrupting her mid-sentence, dismissing her opinions as naive, or correcting her in front of others, it all adds up. Younger women hate this because it signals that you don't see them as equals, and attraction dies faster than most men realize when respect is missing. And it's not just verbal cues, physical and energetic signals matter even more. Leaning in too close before she's comfortable, grabbing attention in ways that feel intrusive, or displaying impatience when she needs time, all of this chips away at trust. Younger women are attuned to personal boundaries at an instinctual level. If you cross them, even subtly, you trigger avoidance, and attraction shifts into caution. Another critical mistake is being overly predictable. Older men often rely on the same routines, jokes, or conversation patterns, assuming experience automatically equals appeal. But younger women crave novelty, subtle unpredictability that stimulates curiosity and keeps their mind engaged. If you're predictable, safe, or emotionally flat, she won't feel the spark she unconsciously seeks. Experience alone isn't enough. Energy, presence, and creativity are what keep desire alive. Now, let's talk about the trap of emotional oversharing. Sharing vulnerabilities is powerful, but timing is everything. Pouring out your insecurities too early or too intensely can overwhelm her and unintentionally place her in a caretaker role. Younger women want a man who is whole enough to hold his own emotions, who can share without needing validation or rescue. If your emotional disclosures feel like a burden rather than connection, she subconsciously distances herself, even if she doesn't articulate why. And here's a behavior older men often miss: the subtle comparison. Complimenting her but immediately comparing her to someone else, or framing her qualities as if they're unusual kills attraction. For example, saying, "You're smarter than most women I know your age," sends a hidden message. "I'm judging you, and I've been disappointed before." Attraction thrives on safety and admiration, not evaluation. Younger women are wired to detect judgment instantly, and it erodes desire faster than 1,000 words of praise could build it. Finally, the energy of impatience is fatal. Whether it's impatience with her schedule, her decisions, or her pace in a relationship, younger women sense it instantly. They want a man who can move at the rhythm of mutual comfort, not his ego. Rushing intimacy, pressuring for time, or expecting her to mirror your energy signals selfishness rather than strength. Emotional patience communicates dominance in the most magnetic, subtle way, by showing that you are secure enough to let things unfold naturally. If you want her attraction to deepen, you must see these behaviors clearly in yourself and correct them silently, almost invisibly. The most powerful pull comes not from words, status, or gifts, but from how you move through life, with presence, confidence, and awareness. Ignore this, and even the most beautiful woman will sense the cracks in your energy long before you think she notices. So many older men make the fatal mistake of thinking attraction is about action rather than energy. They overcompensate with gifts, fancy dates, or constant attention, believing that doing equals being wanted. Younger women don't respond to actions alone. They respond to emotional gravity, the magnetic presence that signals confidence, stability, and self-possession. If your energy says, "I need you to like me," no gesture, no matter how grand, will overcome that signal. One of the biggest invisible mistakes is the subtle insecurity in conversation. It might be a laugh that's too loud, a story repeated for validation, or an opinion that shifts depending on her reactions. Younger women read these signals instantly. What seems harmless to you communicates that you lack self-assurance, and nothing kills sexual tension faster than doubt. She wants a man who owns himself fully, who can express thoughts without fear of judgment, and whose confidence is steady, not performative. Another silent attraction killer is the tendency to overanalyze her behavior. Older men often obsess over her texts, her tone, or her interactions, dissecting them for hidden meanings. This not only drains your energy, but also unconsciously broadcasts neediness. Younger women are drawn to men who are present, not preoccupied. The moment your mind is constantly calculating, "What does this mean?" or "How should I respond?" you shift from magnetic presence to anxious pursuit. Let's talk about control because it's subtle but lethal. Older men often try to guide, correct, or influence decisions in ways that feel protective but come across as controlling. She might not voice it, but she feels the energy immediately. Attraction thrives on freedom, curiosity, and voluntary connection, not on manipulation, advice, or attempts to shape her behavior. If you want her drawn to you, you must lead without forcing, inspire without suffocating, and influence without domination. The fifth hidden mistake is emotional inconsistency in expression. Sometimes you're warm and engaged, other times distant and cold, and younger women notice this before you even speak. Your moods, reactions, and subtle energy shifts are constantly monitored. Attraction isn't about perfection, it's about reliability. If she can't predict the emotional experience of being with you, she will subconsciously protect herself, and the spark dies quietly, without confrontation. And here's a behavior almost every older man miscalculates: the subtle need for validation disguised as advice or mentoring. Offering guidance can be attractive, but if it's overused or delivered in a way that implies she needs you to fix her, it becomes repelling. Younger women want a partner who elevates them through presence and emotional strength, not one who positions himself as a savior or critic. If your mentorship feels conditional or ego-driven, it will backfire instantly. Finally, energy trumps words every single time. A man can say all the right things, follow all the dating rules, and still fail if his energy communicates insecurity, impatience, or control. Younger women respond first to vibration, then to words, and only then to actions. If your energy is misaligned, nothing else matters. Mastering this invisible layer of attraction is what separates older men who are magnetic from those who are merely tolerated. Older men often fail without even realizing it because they underestimate the small, almost invisible things that trigger aversion in younger women. These are not dramatic mistakes. They are micro behaviors that erode attraction silently, like a leak in a luxury car that eventually ruins the engine. She notices everything: the way you glance at your phone mid-conversation, the hesitation before a compliment, the subtle tension in your posture. These small signals scream louder than words ever could. One of the most common traps is over-attachment to her attention. Older men mistakenly believe that constant communication or over-involvement demonstrates care. The reality? It communicates dependency. Younger women are drawn to men who have full, rich lives and whose validation does not depend on her response. When you are too available, too eager, or too intense, you signal scarcity, not value. Scarcity kills attraction quietly, invisibly, and she senses it instinctively. Another behavior that kills attraction is excessive justification. Explaining your choices, your schedule, or your opinions in minute detail can feel natural to you, but to her, it communicates insecurity. Younger women are drawn to men who make decisions effortlessly, who take stands without needing approval, and whose presence alone communicates authority. Every explanation beyond necessity subtly chips away at that invisible authority and reduces your magnetic pull. And then there's the danger of overfamiliarity too soon. Older men often confuse intimacy with familiarity and share too much too early personal habits, grievances, or emotional baggage. Younger women are not opposed to vulnerability, but timing is everything. Oversharing signals that you need her to hold your emotional weight rather than offering connection on equal footing. When this happens, desire diminishes quietly, almost without notice. Let's talk about the subtle trap of comparison disguised as flattery. Praising her while pointing out how she's better than most or different from other women sounds like a compliment, but it triggers judgment. Younger women feel evaluated, assessed, and measured against your invisible scale. Attraction thrives on admiration, not evaluation. The moment she senses judgment even, hidden it shifts from excitement to caution. Another invisible repellent is impatience with growth or learning. Younger women appreciate men who encourage and challenge without pressure, but older men often rush lessons, correct too quickly, or express frustration with inexperience. This energy communicates dominance masked as mentorship and triggers resistance. Attraction is not built through correction, it is built through inspiring respect, curiosity, and emotional safety. Finally, let's confront the silent killer of energy misalignment. Words can be perfect, gestures thoughtful, and appearance sharp, but if your energy communicates insecurity, need, or impatience, she feels it instantly. Younger women are wired to detect subtle discrepancies between what a man says and what he radiates. The misalignment creates unconscious tension, and attraction dwindles before it's ever spoken about. Mastering the invisible layer, the energy behind your words, your presence, your timing is the ultimate game changer. The hardest truth most older men refuse to face is that attraction isn't earned through effort, status, or appearances. It's earned through mastery of self. Your presence, your energy, and your unspoken confidence dictate more about desire than any date, gift, or clever line ever could. Younger women hate behaviors that signal insecurity, neediness, or impatience, because these are red flags of imbalance, not weakness. Attraction isn't about impressing, it's about being magnetic without trying. One of the final, invisible mistakes older men make is ignoring the power of emotional equilibrium. She notices when your highs are too high, your lows too low, your excitement too desperate, your patience too thin. Emotional imbalance creates tension that isn't fun, it's draining. Younger women are drawn to men who can anchor themselves regardless of external chaos. If you cannot regulate your own energy, you cannot hold hers, and desire fades quietly but completely. Another critical trap is misjudging curiosity. Women crave engagement, interest, and stimulation, but only when it feels authentic. Older men often overcompensate with questions, probing for answers, or steering conversations to impress. She sees through it immediately. Curiosity must flow naturally without demand. Your attention should spark interest, not obligation. When your curiosity feels forced, attraction subtly shifts into caution. Then there's the invisible misstep of subtle ego projection. Many older men mistake asserting experience for dominance, wisdom for superiority. Younger women sense it unconsciously. Every comparison, correction, or lesson delivered with ego diminishes desire. Attraction thrives on equality, subtle leadership, and calm authority. If you lead through ego, she resists. If you lead through presence, she leans in instinctively. And finally, the ultimate truth. The smallest micro-behaviors hold the most weight. Eye contact, tone of voice, energy of your gestures, subtle pauses, and rhythm of your presence. These tiny elements communicate far more than words ever could. Younger women are wired to detect these signals instantly. Mastery over them elevates attraction to a level that words, status, or material displays could never achieve. Neglect them, and even the most attentive effort will fall short. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about the one behavior you consistently display that could be pushing her away without you realizing it. Ask yourself, am I being magnetic or am I being needy? Am I creating presence or chasing attention? Write your answer in the comments. And if this video opened your eyes, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. The equation of attraction is subtle, invisible, and powerful, and awareness is the first step toward mastering it. Only those who see themselves clearly can become magnetic in a way younger women unconsciously notice, respect, and desire.